goal was to make the biggest dungeon ever.
Welcome, Delvers, to another exciting live stream for the world's largest dungeon campaign, which has 8 days left on BackerKit. You all have shown so much excitement for this already. There are over 1,580 backers. The amazing dollar value is $664,730 as of this minute. That is just amazing. You guys have blown through so many stretch goals. So we're having to think up some new ones and continue the awesome backer train that is this campaign. 8 days left. So if there's one thing you can do, if you're already a backer, is share with your friends. We all have an update on the campaign. We've got some cool graphics that you can say that you're a backer for the campaign. And that helps us get the word out, because we are a small company, even though we do big things. So every bit of help that you guys can give us really makes a difference. So today's stream, we've got some industry pillars, some legends, some RPG geniuses with us. And these are all folks whose adventures you can play by backing the campaign and picking up the Secret Doors Volume 1, which includes not only content from pillars of the RPG community like this, but also some fan content that will be voted on by the backers of the campaign, where we are hopefully to discover some new and rising talent in the RPG community. So if you've ever thought of getting published or sharing your dungeon ideas with the world, hop to it. Come find out. You don't have to back the campaign to submit. Portals-2-adventures.com. Let me see if I can get that up on screen for you guys. That's where you can submit your idea to be included in the Secret Doors Volume 1, so you can be published along with some of these greats here. So toss in your comments, and I can for our panel, and we'll get to them ASAP. But do also check out Portals to Adventure, where you too can be published. And it's a great way to kind of break in and join some very creative, fun people. So let's meet those very fun and creative people. The first off, right above me, we've got Leeman Crafton Jr. You might know him from the Rifter for Palladium books. He's written extensively for Ulysses Spiel on Torg Eternity. Welcome, Leeman.
Thanks for having me.
We are also joined by Gareth Ryder Hanrahan, Trail of Cthulhu, Knights Black Agents, 13 Age, all for Pelgrane, Dr. Coog for Cubicle 7, Unknown Armies. Oh my God, I've got some Unknown Army stories for Atlas, and also did the Moria book for One Ring. So very excited there. So welcome, Gareth.
Hey.
And then one of the pillars, the leads of this project, the conceptor himself, the great thinker, Mr. Timothy Brown. You might know him from a little property called Dark Sun. Didn't make any waves in the industry with that, which is the Coast, one of the OG classic, awesome, amazing settings. And also great work like 2300 AD for Mongoose. He's written for Pinnacle. He was the backbone of Ulysses Spiel for a good long time, written for Goodman Games. I mean, like, you name it, Tim has done it in the industry. So welcome, boss.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm nobody's boss. I don't think so. World's largest dungeon does not imply world's largest company. Let's just get that out there right now.
Right. I do love when people use the term like indie RPGs. It's like, guys, except for Wizards of the Coast, we're all indie.
Right. Ain't that the truth?
It's so welcome, Buzz. We'll get some comments for you to start. But Leeman, kick us off. How did you find RPGs? What was your first time rolling dice and telling stories with friends? And then kind of segue that into how you got into writing for RPGs.
Sure. So I was one of those, the bad experiences was my first experience. So back when I was probably 11 or so, friend had picked up, and I don't even know which form of D&D it was, if it was AD&D or OD&D or BX. It was right before the red box. and went on an adventure, made up like a fighter, and didn't understand the game, and we got attacked, and I almost died, and was just like, well, that sucked. So then immediately my brain starts turning and is like, how can I make that not suck? So like even from that age, I was wanting to do my own thing, and making up a rules system that probably would be very, very bad today because it came from the mind of an 11-year-old who had a bad D&D experience. But a couple years later, I was very heavily into G.I. Joe comic books, and then one of those was a beautiful full-page Palladium Robotech, the RPG ad. And I had loved the Robotech and begged my mom to write a check, because back then you couldn't do anything over the internet. You had to send the physical check through the mail. Hopefully it got there. Well, it got there, and I got my Robotech RPG. That introduced me to loving the whole role-playing stuff. I got into their Palladium Fantasy and all their stuff. And that led me to way down the line, submit a entry for the Rifter, which is mostly fan, but there is some official material in there. Got accepted on my first entry, which made me feel pretty good at the time. Back around the time I was getting into Rifts, I also got into Torg and loved Torg, the original classic Torg. The thing there was it was a 5-year type thing, and then it ended. So when I found out that Ulysses Spiela was doing a new Torg, I got really interested, and even before it was out, I was on the forums and eating up all the information and stuff.
I remember.
Yeah, and then it came out, and they had, and it switched. It was called the Infiniverse Exchange, which allowed fans to write materials. Now it's the Ulysses Scriptorum, but basically the same thing. Fans can write materials, publish it on DriveThruRPG, and I was like, okay, for my first thing, do I want to have a lot of little things, or do I want to just be the biggest thing that I could do? So I basically wrote a whole alternate setting with new rules, and like went really big and did pretty decently. And I still every once in a while get a little check from that. But what more importantly that did was that caught the eye of some people, authors officially in Palladium, or not Palladium, sorry, in Torg. Daryl, Deanna, and a couple others, they read it and were like, hey, this guy can write a lot. He can make deadlines, because I wrote it like within the first 3 months, and they say that there's the three things, can you write good? Can you make deadlines? And are you easy to get along with? You need two of those three things. I don't know which two. I know I can make deadlines, but other than that, I don't know if it's my personality or if I write well. So we'll just leave that in question. But I got into doing official stuff through that. So then they asked me to, hey, here's an adventure to write an act for. I did that, and they're like, hey, you've been over to Eastern Europe. Why don't you read our Tharkold stuff and give us comments on that? Okay, so I kind of came in as a consultant and writer for that, and then each wave after got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when Greg Gordon sadly had to step aside because of health problems, they needed a line developer, and I had worked my way up. So I'm that fan who became a line developer, which is crazy. When I was asked, I was doing a happy dance. If I would have been 20 years younger, I probably would have been doing cartwheels. So that's where I am today, writing in Torg Eternity.
Awesome.
That is wonderful. And that really captures the spirit of what we are trying to do with the Secret Doors volume. That, we know the next great idea is out there. People just need to get a chance for it. There's definitely like a learning curve, like any industry, and we hope that by being part of a contest, it's worth putting in some of the effort to learn that. And we've got a Discord that folks can kind of ask questions. Tim is on there answering questions regularly. So getting access to one of the people who's really kind of put an imprint on the industry is amazing. And so thank Leland for showing that it can be done, right? This wasn't planned,
exactly.
folks. We didn't like feed Lehman lines like talk about writing, and the thing is getting into but really that it is kind of how it works, right? I think I'll ask you all, like, if you have one piece of advice for nascent writers, but I think you've already hit one really good one is if you can write a deadline, you can meet a deadline, you can make up for a lot of other sins. Editing and, can be done, but if there's nothing to edit, if there's nothing to get art orders from, if there's nothing there's not a whole lot of fixing for that, right? You need to kind of start over, but a lot of other sins could be made up for, but being on time and punctual is really a good one. So thanks, we'll get back to you in a second, sir. And you mentioned the Torg, and you mentioned there's a big thing that's kind of how you got to be a line developer. There might be another big thing on the outing for Torg, so we'll get to that in a second. But Gareth, sir, tell us, how did you get into the hobby? What was your first role-playing game? And then segue into how you got to putting pen to paper or clicky-clacky on a keyboard to getting into becoming a writer for it. And I love your sweatshirt, by the way. It's very perfect choice for the day.
Yes, carefully planned. How did I start? These many years ago, I was a big Tolkien fan, and still am a big Tolkien fan. And when I was 10 or 11 or so, the local library had a Tolkien week, and one of the events was this role-playing game, which I had no idea what role-playing was, but I went in, and there were these people seated at a table with a map of the Prancing Pony and little miniatures, and they said, we'll add another player. I said, you at the back. You, come down. So they handed me a character sheet, and the opening line was, "You are an elf who has passed through Moria." And I went, I have no idea what this is, but it's the best thing ever. So I played that one game, and then because this was 1989 or 1990 or so, I had no idea what I had played. There was no community that so I could search for thing with dice and little miniatures. So I spent a year wandering around bookstores trying to find the game. Ended up accidentally buying this insanely complicated war game with hexes and dice, going, okay, this looks similar. It's got hobbits in it, but in the game, I was able to say I go to the bar, and this it's rule 17.3.7, activating the Watcher in the Water. Then mercifully, I found a copy of Redbox D&D. I went, okay, this is much more like it, and played D&D and Vampire and the usual progression up until college. In college, got involved with the Gaming Society. Gaming Society runs a convention every year, WarpCon, still the best convention in the world. Started doing lots of scenarios for that. We had this odd system where basically you had one person write a scenario, and then you have 20 tables all running the same game, this sort of tournament style thing, which meant I got good at basically writing scenarios that other people could pick up and read and run. Often people who were dragged out of the bar 5 minutes after the convention slot started and handed a scenario, so I got good at summarizing information and structuring stuff. And then I said to a couple of companies, I have these things, they're good convention demos, you can have them for free. And they went, cool, you can write. Have you tried freelancing? And I freelanced a bit and had the sensible and sober plan of doing a little bit of writing on the side and having a real job in computers. And then the real job in computers went away, and I had 3 months salary 3 months rent saved up. And I went, how long can I make this last? And we're at 22, 23 years at this point, and the rent is not run out yet.
Well, that is fantastic. Maybe has more to do with rent control than the lucrativeness for the RPG industry. But that is a fantastic origin story. I'm glad it's a hero origin story, not a villain origin story. Because,
right.
Lehman was touchy there, the whole coming to the hobby from trauma and trauma bonding with horrible first session.
It was a fantastic first session. And what I love as well is that that one game created a whole generation of gamers locally, because I met so many people in college 10 years afterwards went, oh, I was there too. So it was it was I thought the Woodstock, the Clash concert in Manchester or something, where everyone who was there started a band, everyone who was there started a campaign.
Nice.
Oh, that is fantastic. And again, it really does speak to the fact that one, this is a supremely communal hobby, right? It is not just writing for ego or to tell a perfect story. It's writing so that you can have a real live play experience with other people. And that more than anything really kind of inspires everyone to give it a try, because everyone has to participate actively in it, right? You can't, it's not a passive hobby. I mean, sure, there are definitely people who will buy the books and read them for entertainment, and we love you people. You're wonderful. Please do buy more books. Thanks. But at the heart of it, really, it is about getting together with other people, and that's a, player to game master to to author. So it's a wonderful little kind of pipeline of creativity. So think about the what your wanted piece of advice would be for nascent writers. And I'll ask Tim how he got into the hobby, and then we'll kind of run around and we'll ask you guys what your contributions for Secret Doors are. So Tim, sir, how did it start for you?
It started almost before electricity, but
there were tablets and carving involved.
Pretty much. My gaming experience, I got into tabletop before there were role-playing games. So my brother and our friends, we were playing all the Avalon Hill games that Gareth was probably stumbling on. And they were amazingly complex, and half of them didn't really work well. But we loved that stuff. Avalon Hill, SPI. And we learned, and this is where luck entered the equation for me. We learned that the third biggest company making such games was a little bitty fledgling company called Game Designers Workshop, and they were across town. I could get there on my bike, and I did, and I never left. I made a nuisance of myself until they made me do work around the place, including working in the warehouse, and then I started writing products and just weaseled my way into the industry by just pure serendipity that I happened to live very close to these guys who were very tolerant of a young kid pestering them all the time. And I was super young. I was hanging out there when I was like 11 and trying to get stuff done. So
when the ad for it's 10 p.m. do you know where your children are? The answer for your mom was GDW.
Right. And they were giving me a ride there and back often. So they knew exactly where I was. That's the good news. But yeah, all the guys at Game Designers Workshop, starting with Mark Miller and Frank Chadwick and Rich Banner and John Harshman and Lauren Wiseman, all those guys were just great mentors to me and really helped me learn the business. And that's part of the opportunity that I'm hoping we can kind of recreate with some of the things we're doing now. But to move on, I eventually got into the role playing end with it was a friend of ours who had moved away and then came back for a visit, who said he'd heard about this game called Dungeons and Dragons. Went down to my hobby shop, bought the original 3-book white box set, and we were off to the races. We loved that. It was so much fun. And Game Designers Workshop was working on science fiction stuff along those lines with Traveller. And so I weaseled my way into working on Traveller and then other role-playing games that they were putting out, including 2300 AD, which is a hard science kind of setting, and Space 1889, which I still have some involvement with now through Strange Owl Games, which is just great to come full circle there. Moved on and went to TSR, where I was lucky enough to get on the ground floor and create a brand new campaign universe for AD&D at the time, and that was Dark Sun with Troy Denning and Brom doing all of the art. One of the greatest experiences of my life to bring all of that together. And yeah, I've been in and out of different role-playing things ever since, with Fast Forward Entertainment and then Ulysses Spiele, and I can't even bring them all to mind right now, but that ground floor entry in, which again was so lucky for me, has led to such an exciting part of my life. It's let me travel the world. I've gotten to go all these conventions. I've met so many wonderful people, played so many fun games, and other people deserve that opportunity. And I want to make sure that we use these contests through portals to adventure to let people kind of break in. I think on the outside, people kind of probably either think there's no room for anybody else in the industry, or there's no great need for new writers and new ideas, when exactly the opposite is true. This industry needs new writers and new ideas, and the next great games that we're going to be talking about 5 years ago are going to come from people we haven't even heard of today. And I want to help them get in, and I want this to be a vehicle for that opportunity. So yeah, that's where we're at.
It's really true. I mean, this is a very nascent hobby industry that, I mean, we're really kind of only in the second generation, right? I mean, the people who founded We Know It are just in their retirement, or maybe in the grave just a little bit, a couple years. And the whole second generation are in their prime and kind of having big companies. But even then, it's like just the third generation is just around the corner. So
absolutely,
yeah. And there's so many ideas that everyone thinks of. Like, I think we all start with maybe like Lieben, who had like the, it's a bad scenario, but how can I make it better? I mean, I think all of us play a certain game or system where like, oh, I'd love it, but just a little tweak. And so you end up with a little bit of a clone kind of. That's a great place to start, cloning off of some other ideas. But man, there are just so many genres that haven't been touched yet with big IP properties yet, and then so there's room for that next great idea. So get out there and write, submit to the portals, folks. We've got a great question from Gabriel. Gabriel asks, hello, thank you for having this chat. I'm excited to submit my dungeon for the contest. This is my first time writing a module of any kind. Question for everybody, we'll put it around. What are your favorite tools for writing or creating RPGs? Anything that makes your creative lives easier? It's a little overwhelming with so much software out there. Ended up just using Microsoft Word and graph paper. So thank you, Gabriel. Great question. We'll toss it to Lehman. Yeah, so for first timers, what's your advice for first timer? And is there any favorite tools, any process recommendations on how to make your writing better or get across that deadline?
So I personally just use Microsoft Word. I know some people even go so far as they'll write in InDesign, and I have had, just give me the basics. Give me the basics, and Microsoft Word does that thing. And I've just gotten good with that. If it's coming up with ideas and stuff, I just consume as much media as I can about any topics, and it can even be like the weirdest or thing you're like, oh wow, that show was waste of time. But sometimes you'll get kernels of stuff in there, and that's what I like. I like trying to find one question in some type of TV show or movie or book or something that maybe is not even answered, and then I start kind of going with that, and then I just explode it, make it bigger. The other thing I love doing is I love looking at role-playing games out there that have not a lot of audience, and then taking that setting or that adventure or a idea in it and then converting it to a different system. I love just the conversions and stuff. Even in my younger days, like I said, I had loved Palladium books, but there weren't a lot of Palladium book adventures, even for fantasy. But it was a system that you rolled a d20, and if you rolled high, that was a good. Your long sword did about 1d8 damage. So I took all of the D&D adventures I could find and just on the fly converted stuff. Hey, this is this spell, and we're casting this spell. I don't know. They went to different magic schools. It's just like everything on the fly. Didn't care whatsoever that the rules weren't perfectly aligned. But it's always that. Don't look at something like a straitjacket. Always trying to find ways to expand it and make it more appealing and more, emotional and stuff like that. So that's my thing, is just look at everything. At all. I work. My day job is in a crime lab. I'm a latent print examiner, and so there's things where it's just like a case comes in. Well, I can't do the actual case because of laws and stuff like that. But I can take little weird things and I can seed them into games and stuff like that. So
that is very telling, Lehman. Very telling.
I mean, I think Garrett's going to call you about some next Night's Black Agent.
Oh yes,
module.
I'm always look out for people who are like, ooh, that's an interesting set of skills, or like specialist knowledge.
Yeah. It does. I would say a thing to avoid is everybody has certain things that they are like the best at knowing, and sometimes in a game that's not exactly simulating real life, you got to put those to the side. You just got to go, I can't go realistic with this, because if I do it with this, I'll need to do everything, and I'm not an expert on everything. So like when stuff is CSI or forensic science appropriate in Torg Eternity, which is an action movie cinematic based thing, I can't look at it as real world logic to solve crimes. I have to look at it as movie logic that normally, you watch CSI or NCIS, and I'm just like, oh no, that's not how it works. But when I'm doing Torg Eternity, I was like, that's how it works. So sometimes you just have to put your knowledge to the side to come up with something that others can enjoy.
Yeah, and sometimes your idea isn't actually a game; it's a novel. So you're a frustrated novelist, and you should put that out as a paperback, not as a game, because there's not room for other people in some of these things I see. I'm like, oh, I think you've solved all the equations here. Everything's done.
Right.
But the so Gareth, but besides, what do you do with fingerprint analysis as a vampire investigator and Night's Black Agents? Any tips for the folks just starting out on kind of how to start and then to get to Gabriel's specific question, what kind of tools do you use that you find most effective?
Yeah, I mean, again, Microsoft Word, it works, or Google Docs, whatever you like. And yeah, I mean, I'm still using graph paper. No, I mean, the one thing to always keep in mind, is that a role-playing scenario or book, it has to be functional. I said, you're not writing a novel, you're not writing a story. Whenever, like I'm writing, so stop myself every so often and go, right, how does this get used at the table? How is this support the GM? How is it support the players? How will this information actually make it to the GM into the game? And just like always remember that basically you're writing to support the GM and to make their lives easier, to make the players' experience more fun. And just like how will this get used? How can I make it easier to get this to be used? And yeah, once you keep that in mind as you're sort of guiding light, everything else can flow through that. You can, like I said, go off, research. That's one of the joys of role-play writing. You can grab anything in the world, slap into a scenario, put it through a fantasy filter, science fiction filter, whatever, and wonderful things will come out of it. One of the weirdly funnest afternoons of my life was spending the vampire game, spending a day researching European garlic smuggling and intricacies of that. Because there's a huge market in garlic smuggling, apparently. I'm going, right, how can I garlic smuggling, vampires, organized crime, all links up.
That's fantastic. Although it does explain that in some alternate universes, when Dracula's making his way to the New World in his coffin with dirt, he just didn't make it because it turned out it was an illicit garlic smuggling operation, and he was done for before the trip. So,
or he's the one who organized it. Where are you least like to go looking for Dracula on a ship full of garlic? Wow, hiding in plain sight.
Oh, fantastic! I love it. But don't get no spoilers for the next book, right? No spoilers.
Right.
So Tim, any piece of advice for the new authors? Any tools that you find particularly helpful in getting your ideas out?
Yeah, I'm glad Gabriel asked these kinds of questions, and yeah, where do you get started and what tools do you use? I mean, I concur with everyone here that just writing it out on Microsoft Word, just make your Word document and use all of those tools to get your idea on paper. That's your best bet. Outside of that, some of the online map making tools that you might turn to, some are free and some have a price tag. There's a variety of them out there, and they can be very helpful because I think that you have to examine your own shortcomings. One of mine is I'm not an artist at all. I can't make anything that looks very coherent. Chris can attest to that. Some of the drawings I've made of websites have been laughed at because they're so primitive. But at any rate, those kinds of tools can help. So I'd encourage you to maybe reach into that a little bit. But all the ideas and everything that you can get off of different media, I mean, everything you look at around you has got an idea for some kind of an adventure. Especially something as simple as creating a what's behind this door kind of adventure for something like we're talking about today. So the ideas, I think, are probably going to come fairly easy. It's just a matter of when you, much to Garrett's point, with the whatever you put down on paper has to be fun and usable in a game setting. So our writing for role-playing games lies somewhere between the Great American Novel and just an instruction manual, because it's got to be entertaining, but it's got to be functional. And you've got to always keep in mind that at some point, this is all going to be laid out on the table, and several people are going to try to play this. The game master, dungeon master, is going to try to run it, and you have to give them all the right information. But within that, you're really just set it up, because we all know this from running role-playing games, that the players are gonna take whatever you've thought of, and they're going to run all over it and do all kinds of stuff. So leave room for spontaneity, which is easy to do in these situations. You set up a compelling thing that you make sure that everybody and that there's something for everyone to do. All these different player characters can have a different role in solving the problem or whatever that is. But once you've given that a good setting and a clever thing for them to figure out, they're going to go 1,000 different ways to figure it out. So just leave that room for spontaneity and don't be afraid. Just put any crazy thing on paper, because a good game master is going to have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, well, that's the excellent thing, Gabriel, is you don't have to be an excellent mapper or even technical guy or gal to submit for this. Yeah, we do ask folks to include a little map, but it doesn't have to be publish worthy. We will have map makers spruce that up and with your instructions and create it. So it's just to get an idea of what's in your head, and that you make sure it's clear with your writing. Similarly, I think we asked for video as well. That's optional. So if you folks out there want to help pitch your game, I'd gladly host one of these live streams or even offline stream, so we can get you guys on video if doing videos isn't your thing.
Sure.
It's just so you can help pitch your products. That's kind of we want you to be able to present the best of your ideas in a easily to consume possible format for the voters. So, and it's all up to voting, and we're excited about that. The fans really get a choice here. I think I really liked Lehman, your idea about conversion. It's not required that you do any crunch in your adventure. It can be just an idea. It doesn't have to have new mechanics. But I think if you are on the end of the game design where you're looking at crunch or designing your own system, or even just trying to appreciate the system you're writing for, I love your idea of conversion, because that really gives you a great idea of why the game designers made the choices they did. It's not readily apparent if you're just playing the game, but when you try to convert it to another system, you find out real quickly, oh, that's why that works like that, or that's why they said these things, because they were thinking of scenarios you might not think of immediately. And so yeah, conversions are a great little hobby to just kind of build your muscle, cut your teeth, so to speak, on the kind of mechanical sides of game design. And Gareth, loved your idea of doing the unexpected. It's not putting Dracula on the garlic ship. Great, right? That's a fun twist that players can really interact with. So the excellent ideas all around. I think I'd add the two things I use on my phone. I have just a little notepad app, and when I have an idea for a setting, I've got one that's a very pun-heavy, tongue-in-cheek parody setting. And every time I just driving along and a new pun comes to mind or an idea, I just put it on the phone so I don't forget it, right? And so that's just a little note-taking thing. And then if you're really into world building and you want to kind of keep organized on like a pantheon and areas, if you're really kind of building stuff that you can't just refer to Wikipedia or refer to history, there's a great little piece of software called The Brain, and it's just kind of a flow chart piece of software that you can connect ideas with. And so it's kind of like making your own little wiki or whatever, just kind of with a nice little flow chart. And that really helps to just get ideas down, kind of build some more complex stuff, and it's easier to dump that into a document eventually. But I definitely see people who just keep a Word document. The Word document gets from like 5 pages to 85 pages to, you start with The Hobbit and end up with a Silmarillion. So wherever you're at. But Alcinor asks a great new question. I have been writing my dungeon. Excellent, thank you. If small stuff has been published but I have not worked for a company directly, is it still okay to submit? Absolutely. They're submitted to GUI Cube. Love GUI Cube. They're here in the Springs, Colorado Springs. So they are friends of the show. Yes, if you don't have a business card with your name on it, that as a professional in the RPG industry, we welcome your submissions. Full-time work kind of is, if we've seen you at Gamma, I don't think you're there. But if you submitted to some of the smaller time publishing things, by all means, this is your chance to kind of be part of a real big company. So oh look, John Doom showed up. How's it going, buddy? Yeah, you're welcome, Gabriel. We appreciate your question. It's an excellent question. So
good luck
as well as right. Yeah, good luck. Yeah, get your stuff in. We'll be happy to promote it. And if you need help with it, just ask. There is the Discord. I put the link up a couple minutes ago. But yeah, Tim is in there answering questions just like that all the time. So if anything isn't clear, we're happy to answer your questions. So I think it's the time in the show where we kind of start telling people what is your adventure that links to the world's largest dungeon. Actually, wait, one more question before that. Do you remember the original world's largest dungeon? What was your impression 20 years ago, if you do? And then did you get a chance to play it? So before we get to that, let's answer I remember seeing it on the shelf. I was a young kid, definitely couldn't afford it at the time, but oh my God, it was this everything else was very slim. And like even AEG had a lot of really great little pamphlets that were like these like double fold kind of, they were like this big, right? And they were great, but oh my god, the tome, it weighed more than anything else. It had more maps, it was huge. So I kind of remember, oh my god, they make RPGs this big, they come in, it's like a kaiju of an RPG. So Lehman, do you remember the original, and do you have any memories of the 20 years ago? Did you get to play it even?
I didn't get to play it. It was one of those when I first saw it was just like, wow, that would be a great game if I had a group that would last that long. Because in my couple of personal home groups, I've been one of the only game masters who's actually ended a campaign with an ending and not just it fizzled out and people didn't show up or the game master got bored or whatever. And I did that with a few of my early campaigns. And then I played and did some game mastering, which those did fizzle out in that. And when that came out, it was more of that time when it was, oh, we'll play a game for 1 or 2 sessions. We'll play another game for a couple more sessions and stuff like that. Recently, though, I've been in a couple of campaigns, both as a player and game master, which have been going on for multiple years. So when I found out that this one was coming out, I was like, oh, I didn't hit it last time, but now I'm going to hit it this time. So I'm a backer. I put my own, 2 cents or whatever in there. I'm getting one of those big dice because I think that's really, really cool. I'm in my 50s, and all my peers at my game, they use those little bitty dice, and then they take off their glasses and they get real close to read, and I'm like, no, I'm going to the opposite. I'm going to have the biggest die on there when I roll. People across the street are going to be able to see what it is. But no, I'm really excited because, as I said, I love converting. So even if I don't use it as a 5th edition, the stats are in there. They can give me something, and I can do that conversion on the fly. I've just been able to. So whatever happens, that is going to be used in one of the games I'm playing, even if nobody realizes it's, so they won't be able to go, oh, world's largest dungeon, we'll be in it. And then at some point I'll say, hey, that's what you had been doing for all of that time. So I just think it's great. Just a long-term, long campaign to go through. It's just awesome.
This time around, your name's going to be in it. You get to contribute. So which world are you going to link to the world's largest dungeon through your Secret Door adventure?
Torg Eternity, of course.
On brand.
It's just, I think it's really cool. Also, D&D has always been that entry game. The majority of people get into that. And if there's a nice segue to, I had friends, it took me a long time to get them to play anything else. And then once they did, they had fun. And then they started game mastering other games and stuff. But it's always that hesitation. So you make a 5e conversion, again, converting, and give them a taste of what they can get in your own game. Well, if they love it, they can check out your game. If they like it in the conversion, they can do their conversion and stick with the 5th edition. So it's just a cool way of, hey, here's a little introduction. Here's some stuff in Torg Eternity you might find interesting. If not, you can go back to the dungeon. If you like, you can divert off into Torg Eternity. I think choices are awesome.
Yeah, that's excellent. So one more follow-up question on that. So as a writer who has written across multiple game systems, have you found that challenging? Any advice to people who are looking to, maybe 5e isn't their favorite, but it is a wonderful place to hone some skills and get work too, right? Like that's, a lot of 5e work out there more than the other ones. And I think everybody around here, it seems like, has worked for multiple companies and they all kind of have their own systems too. So what have you found that experience like working across multiple kind of crunch systems as the narrative guy?
So for writing, I just, like I said, I've always found it very easy and that could be something as this game has a goblin and that game has a goblin. So I'm going to look at the base goblins because they're usually what, low level characters are. Starting characters can fight. Kind of look out, okay, that's what that is. So I love reskinning. So if I'm going to something else, I can get some stats that are about what I want, and then just describe it as something else and just use those stats. So that happens all the time. And that's a good way. Then once you start doing that, you use what's already there, you reskin a few things, and then you start understanding the mechanics, and then you can start building those monsters. Yeah, there are certain games and stuff that will have nice, very nice monster making systems, but not all games are like that. And if you're in a game that's not like that, you need to figure it out. Look at similar monsters, see where theirs are, see what's a little bit higher than those, and then use those stat blocks and such to make your own. And that's basically what I've always done. Also, if you get something that's similar, then it's a lot easier than if it's different. But Torg Eternity is very different than 5th edition, which is very different than 1st edition, actually. So there's a lot of just figuring out how things switch back and forth. Find that goblin, that kobold, that low thing, start with that, and then start working up.
Yeah, awesome. That's excellent advice. So, Gareth, any memories of the world's largest dungeon when it came out 20 years ago with the largesse as its biggest selling point? And amazingly, I think if largesse was the big selling point then, I think quality is kind of the good reason why it's coming back for this time. So any memories there that
I'm trying to think back. I'd done some small bits for AEG around the time it came out. So I suspected I'd been quite annoyed that I didn't get to write for it, because adventures were my thing. And then in the early part of my career, when it was like the D20 boom, I was doing lots of like third-party source books for D20 things, but none of them were adventures. I didn't actually get to do a proper dungeon for about 10 years. So yeah, I'm sort of. Am I still slightly peeved? Probably not. It's been a long time.
Well, we're writing an ancient injustice now, so it's
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly.
Things come full circle. Well, yeah. My secret door for this is connecting up to Trail of Cthulhu, which is Pelgrane's Gumshoe-powered Cthulhu version. Gumshoe, the quick spiel, is the investigative role-playing game. The core concept of Gumshoe is it's always mostly for the players to get information, so there's no rolling for investigative skills. If you have the right investigative ability in the right situation, you get the information. There's no failing spot hidden checks or failing history checks or whatever. And obviously it's Cthulhu, so it's set in the 30s. So the secret door is basically you open the door and you blunder into a basement of this like house in Arkham, where there was this cult meeting which has gone horribly, horribly wrong, and you like blunder through like the aftermath of this summoning that's been botched. And to avoid, it's a fairly small adventure. So to avoid writing up the entirety of the world, the house is sealed. You can sort of peer out and see Arkham out there and go, this is we're not in Kansas, we're in Massachusetts.
Right,
Professor, we're not in Massachusetts anymore.
Exactly.
Nice.
But so it was fun, sort of like merging the D&D and the Lovecraft aesthetic. And like Lovecraft did his share of fantasy. You got the Dreamland and so forth. So there was a sort of a hinge point there where this sorcerer from the Dreamlands, i.e. the dungeon, came out and the cult was worshipping him. And anyway, I will not spoil the mystery, but it was fun to basically do the equivalent of the kid, like the slushy machine, and like it's going to be orange and red at the same time.
Yeah, they when I was a kid, they called those suicides. And now they just call it diabetes. But I love that your adventuring party is essentially the botched summoning spell. You got summoned.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
The Elder Gods, no, but your dungeon delvers, yes. Wait a minute, I'm expecting wonderful world-shaking powers. It's like we've got a barbarian and a nature lover. Is that going to work?
To be fair, you are nebbish 1930s like occultist. You summon monsters. Well, that guy's got a giant axe. That guy could throw fireballs. They're godly enough.
That's true. That is fantastic. See, I love genre mashups. They're my favorite. So I am definitely going to check yours out. That sounds wonderfully fantastic. So Tim, are you submitting one to the book too, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The original question, because I've been thinking on that, is what was my first impression of World's Largest when it came out? And honestly, I didn't really know it existed at all until I saw it at Gen Con, whatever year that was, because I've been to every Gen Con, it seems forever. But and I saw this massive book and World's Largest Dungeon, and I think I asked John Zinzer at the time, and I said, and the two things that stuck with me about his explanation was first that this single tome, if you were to play it through with one group through the whole thing, they would start characters at first level and end up 20th level. And I thought, wow, that's ambitious. So I give him credit for that. And the other thing that always stuck with me, that the theme of the dungeon is that the whole place is in some sort of interplanar prison. And this is what you find when you explore this massive dungeon, is this has all been a prison. And that just always stuck with me, that would make this an ideal thing to cross over into all these other universes. I mean, it stands to reason that if prisoners were brought here from other planar places, well, maybe there's ways through these secret doors to get back to them. So that we expanded that idea for the whole Secret Doors book, just to give some new content to this great dungeon experience. And for my part, I'm publishing Dragon Kings, which is my spiritual successor to Dark Sun. And in that universe, what has happened in this secret door is you're actually going to go through the secret door and find somebody from that universe, from the world of Kytus, who has been imprisoned here, and you're going to find out why and see if you can help them escape. So that's don't want to give it away, but that's kind of things that you're going to find with all these different secret doors that all these great professional writers, of which we four here are just four people who have contributed, right? And there's a lot more, so you'll have to check out the various websites and whatnot to see the whole group. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that we're putting together, and I just think it's pretty exciting, and a lot of great new content for a pretty exciting game setting.
I mean, you can't have a prison and not have a prison break, right? So it's a
Exactly.
fantastic choice. So question, so you remember seeing the original. What made you decide that this was something you wanted to bring back for an epic Platinum Edition 20th anniversary? What's what tickled your fancy on, like, this needs to make a comeback and get the Tim Brown spin, the super deluxe version?
Frankly, we just keeping an eye on the product over the years since it was put out, and we've sort of known that AEG and John had that product was out there. It had been out of print for a very long time, but you could get it on DriveThru RPG as a PDF, and we knew that the interest in it was still maintained by many people picking it up there. And then just seeing that on eBay and things like that, that original copies of the game, of this, if you could find them at all, we're going for hundreds of dollars. There's demand out there for it in its original form. And when we decided that we'd have a chat with the guys at AEG and see if we could license that and bring it out again, because it just seemed like it just seemed like the kind of thing that we could not only bring back in its original form, but we could expand and make it a lot better. We knew we could do a lot better art. I mean, just time has passed. They did a great job with it back in the day, but now we've got it's all color art. There's so many different ways to make more deluxe editions of all the books so that they're really special. All the miniatures that we can bring out that are part of it, that are all very exciting. If you haven't seen that on the crowdfunding, by all means, go check that out. The different dice we could bring to it were all in our wheelhouse. We thought it was a perfect kind of a perfect storm of all the things we could bring to the equation to make that particular thing come alive again. And we're very excited with how it turned out, and we're glad that the crowdfunding is going so well. We're just beside ourselves. We're so pleased with that. So clearly, we've reached a lot of people who wanted to see something new and big like this, or they wanted to see a revision of the old thing brought into the modern game system, or a combination of all of those things. Thanks to John and everybody at AEG who's given us a leg up getting this started, but we put a big team of people together to get this all rewritten and edited and republished, and yeah, it's turned out really good. Can't wait to see it in print.
Yeah, no, it's a very exciting project. I mean, it's rare that you get to work with so many different creatives on one project, right? I mean, it does speak to the largesse, the whole sales pitches. It's bigger and better than anything else that's been done. I just love the fact that the Secret Doors has multiplied that number, right? It's not only all the original authors, and I think there were 16 16 sections and probably 10 to 12 authors between all of those. But again, all of the new authors that get through Secret Doors, and then just a growing number of fans who will become published here with
That's
this.
right.
It's just
right.
a great way of right. It can't be the largest dungeon unless you've got the most number of authors contributing to it. And that's super exciting part of it. So I'm lucky I get to contribute a little module to it too. So I'm very happy that you guys said yes. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I got to write a little thing for SWAT, which is spells, weapons, and tactics, which is kind of the Lord of the Rings meets Cops, the TV show from the 80s and 90s. Kind of a love letter to 80s buddy cop films, and a little beer and pretzels kind of game, right? Like we get to play cops, but we're fantasy. So with the impetus being that like there are too many murder hobos in some fantasy systems, because there's just not a justice system on how you have to behave. Like killing monsters is the easiest way to deal with it with the adventure. Like, what if you have to collect evidence against them and then have a case against them? And we've got Night Court with a K, and so it's a fun way of kind of without ham-handedly telling players that they're bad. Have different challenges with kind of dungeon crawl. Can you do a dungeon crawl that's more like a breach and arrest than it is like a just burn the whole thing down? So hopefully that's fun. And right, if you have a dungeon and you have a dungeon break, you also have some cops that want to throw some monsters in the dungeon. So it all works out, right? The yes, Florida man makes an appearance. So yeah, it's really exciting the fact that there's just so many creatives involved. I think since all of you have got awesome careers in this industry, any tips on how to work in a team? Because I think a lot of us, when you're the game master, right, and you're like the forever game master who's writing a lot of homebrew, it feels kind of like a very lonely experience, especially before the internet, whatever. But it feels like a lot of burdens just on you. But when you go into publishing, you're kind of opening up to a lot more collaboration before everything gets to the table than you might be used to. And that comes from having a little more steel in your spine to allow for editing, but also the wonderful thing of seeing artists bring your ideas to life in a way that, like Tim and I, if we can't really draw, whatever, then great. It's amazing seeing that. So any tips or any kind of just, best moments of what it's like to work with other people to publish games? So I'll start with you, Lehman.
So I agree with the putting in an art order and just going, I don't know how the artist is going to be able to do this. And then when you even get the first draft of the art piece and you're like, oh yeah, I can get along with that. That's really cool. And as you said, the ideas that you put to paper by typing get then translated to an artistic expression is really, really cool. Collaboration and being able not to put your ego to the side, take constructive criticism. There is one thing where it's just people saying bad things about you, but if it's constructive criticism, have your ears open and your mind open to that they have a problem with this. What is the problem? Whether that's great adventure, but we're a bit railroady. Okay, then I will try to get rid of that railroad, or make it more options and such. Just be able to, I really like how you worded that paragraph, but then the next one kind of was bad. Could you redo that? And not go, I have been writing for X many years. I know what I'm doing. To be able to go, okay, yeah, let's see, how do you like this, type thing. So I would say that's the biggest is being open to constructive criticism, and that just makes things work well. Being able to take a idea that you have that it's the best idea ever and realize it's a really good idea, but it doesn't fit this specific game, and being able to move it to the side as a little dream of maybe later I can work with it, but right now, no, it's not going to work. Being able to let your babies, I don't want it to sound bad, but being able to let your babies die, let those ideas pass along, because it might be good for you and your group specifically, but it's not good for the entire world out there. And when you're writing not just for you and your group. You are writing for a world, audience now. It's not just even United States; it's everywhere.
Right.
Anybody can get your stuff. So
Excellent, wonderful. So, Gareth, how have you found collaborating on creativity and creation and art and all that good stuff? And any tips for folks who are just that'll be the first time doing that?
I will now tip my camera up and see if you can see the lovely map of Maria. It's a bit too far away, but yeah, that was the high point. To go do me a map of the entire dungeon, and they did. No,
That's an epic map. I've seen it. Oh,
Yeah.
it's gorgeous.
It's insane. I thought I had nothing to do with it, but here is a list of locations. Make this make sense. And they went and did it. It was fantastic. I echo an awful lot has been said already. The two tips I always give new freelancers are: number one, stay in communication. As we said, your line developer, your editor can fix anything that goes wrong later on, as long as they know the problem is coming. So the absolute worst sin, well, not absolute worst sin, but one of the worst sins is ghosting. Vanishing out of contact. Sometimes freelancers will have to fall through. Life happens, as long as you don't just suddenly vanish off email, because so much of the work is distributed. So many teams you're working with are scattered all over the world. No one's working from an office, or very few people. But staying in touch is absolutely key, and also staying in touch not too much. It's very easy if you're super enthusiastic about a project to spend the whole day chatting on Slack about it and not actually get any writing done. There's find that balance between, yes, I'm alive and I'm now spam you for the whole day. Sorry, I'm losing coherence here. It's 1 a.m.
Well, thank you for taking the time all the way.
Yeah, no
from
kidding.
overseas. We appreciate that.
The other thing is find something to love in every game. I've worked with an awful lot of systems, an awful lot of licensed properties and so forth. Some I came in absolutely obsessed with. Others were sort of handed to me, and I go, "Oh, okay, we're going to write this now." But even if something is not to your particular taste, other people will love it. You got to work out what they're loving and basically cultivate your taste for that. Because you're writing it to support the game's master and the players, you've got to basically work out what the thing is that will inspire and excite them, and convey that through the text. Find the cool thing that will make this particular scenario, this particular book, just sing, and build on that. It's it is a wonderfully collaborative art form, and you've got to find that point where basically minds and souls meet, and you're just making things sing at the table.
That's fantastic.
Very
Timothy.
poetic and not coherent.
But your point on don't ghost, yes. You ghost me, you're never gonna write again for toward eternity. If you have something in real life that causes that you need to step away, it could be 5 months, it could be 3 years. Just let me know. If you just don't tell me, and especially if you're on a project, no, you're not coming back. Sorry.
Right. There's no crime in running behind on your deadline. The crime is not telling anyone about it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where it becomes a problem. We can always fix that. We can always find people to help collaborate, work with you, whatever it's going to take. But yeah, good points.
Yeah. No, excellent. Any other wisdom from Timothy?
If you're going to be collaborating on one of these secret doors or any other project in the future, I just can't say enough about all the time you spend with those collaborators just chatting about it. It's never wasted time. Just always make the time to sit down and go through what you're thinking. You'll hear what they're thinking. You'll probably tangent off and come up with 6 new game ideas while you're doing that. Write those down too, but it's not the one you're working on now, but it all helps coalesce everything so that these people who are working in your shared universe, who are going to make something that's going to be published by all of you to make one coherent message and one coherent game for the people to acquire outside of your group, you'll get a lot of value out of just sitting around spitballing about it. You think you can do that independently, but whenever you're going to work with somebody else, just take the time and chat it through, and there'll be some of the most fun things you remember about the project is when you sat around having coffee with somebody and had all these wacky ideas. Half of them might even make it into the product, but half of them will, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it fun.
Most excellent. And how awesome was it to have Brom bring one of your ideas to life?
Oh my God, it was so great. That guy was so clever. It was the first time I ever got into a situation, both Troy and I, where not only did we want to describe things for Dark Sun and ask Brom to illustrate them, but the reverse was also just as true. Brom, why don't you illustrate some really wild stuff, and then we'll describe it for the universe. So that level of collaboration, I think, was unique at the time. I hope more people are doing that now. And the result was tremendous. We're very glad that we opened all that up. And trust me, we sat around and chatted about this stuff a lot back in the day. It was tremendous. What a great time.
So good. Well, out of respect for Gareth's sanity and productivity tomorrow, only a few more questions will go around. We're going to once more. I want everybody to tell me what your other big project is that you want to advertise is coming up. Any spoilers? Anything you want to help promote with our audience? Also, the another optional question. We got one in the chat asking about how soon do you get things on the table and how do you play test? And then perhaps if this is interesting or not, where do you see the role-playing hobby in another 20 years? So amongst all of that, pick something fun to talk about. Definitely get your promos in. So Lehman, what's next? What's the next IP we can see your name on? What's the next book coming out? What goodness is on the horizon?
So right now, I've been working for a couple of years getting a upgrade to Torg Eternity. So it's going to be Torg Eternity Year 2. We put out the main book. All 8 realities Torg is based off of different genres, and there's 8 of them currently. And when you get book stacking upon books, this rule with the core book works, this rule with the core book works, but when they all 3 get together, things get out of control sometimes. So it's been looking at everything, also looking, does it fit the goal of action, cinematic, anything that gets in makes a speed bump to that, we're going to flatten that out. But year 2 is going to have 4 new core rule books. So there will be basically a player's guide, the Storm Knight guide. There will be a GM's guide, the High Lord's guide. There will be a setting guide, realities of the Infiniverse, and then there is going to be the monster manual threats of the High Lords. So we're going to come up with 4 really nice books. They're getting completed very soon. And then we'll have a mega adventure, Fractures of Shadow and Light, which will be a new, interesting way that hasn't been done yet before in Torg Eternity that we're looking on. And then another adventure books with lots of like 1 act. Torg Eternity is set in scenes and acts. So an act is a few scenes. And it's going to have a lot of those called Roiling Thunder because the storm has a name. And if you're a Torg fan, you you know that quote. But that's what I'm doing is year 2 Torg Eternity, the 6 books that we'll be getting out hopefully soon.
Soon, trademark.
I won't give a date until I'm sure because I don't want to be a liar, and seriously, I don't want to be that, hey, I think it's going to be in X month and the next month passes and hey, Lehman's a liar. So I don't want to say that, but we are like getting on that cusp. Is that, what was the question? I had to answer it, but I forgot the question.
So how does
yes.
How does playtesting work into your process?
Yeah, so we've been playtesting a lot with rules upgrades and updates and such. It's interesting for me. I will anything that's a major change we'll try to do just to see does it work or not. Because again, it's one of those things. Sometimes you think you have this great solution, and then you give it to the players, And there is the players don't like it because it's not familiar, but maybe they'll get used to it. But then there's the no, this rules just does not work, or in my head it works, but in play I get confused by it, and nobody should get confused by it in play. That's another thing, that we're going with. So if I can't figure out these two terms sound too close together, then maybe we don't use those, or maybe we do a different system. I find it interesting because, having said that, playtesting a lot and often in editing, I don't like it until okay, first draft. Now I tell you the rules that are changed, rules are going to change, but I'm going to read it the last draft, because otherwise I'm going to have 18 iterations of the rule in my head, and I'll be reading it, skimming, and going, yeah, I know what that says, but it won't be what it actually is. So I want to catch those things. So sometimes I have to while editing, I have to put the material to the side for a little while to kind of forget that flow, so then I can look at it with new eyes, because otherwise we've changed this thing 8 times in the last 3 months. So I don't know what's going on right now. So it's one of those, you have to, or at least I do, I have to kind of let it get out of my system and then get to it. But yeah, playtesting just to make sure everything fits and flows, because it can flow really good in here, but then when the dice start rolling on the table, it doesn't. So.
Wonderful. Any prophecy or hopes for the next 20 years of the RPG industry?
I just hope there's more and more. I mean, there's been times, I would say mid to, and I could be wrong, because I was just a fan, not actually, I wasn't with numbers or anything. But as a fan, I felt really scared in the mid 90s to late 90s, where it just seemed like everything was Magic the Gathering, card games. I went to Gen Con in 99, and it seemed like a card game con compared to when I went earlier. And I was like just scared that, okay, am I losing my love? And seeing it get big since then, and online and drive through RPG, which anybody can put their stuff out on, and when you have fan base stuff like this, like the Ulysses Scriptorum or the Rifter, you have places where fans can get their work out, get noticed by people in the industry, and then go, hey, let's bring you on board, and then you can become a line developer. So I just want more and more options. I love options, more and more games, more and more flavors, because there's certain things that I also would have thought that I would have disliked in a game, and then I played the game and I end up loving the game, even though like mentally I'm like, I shouldn't like this game, but I do. Games like Blades in the Dark and Sentinels, the comic game, a lot of those were things I went into because sometimes I have a little old school mind of old D and stuff, and they have some rules that are just awesome, and you don't learn that unless you see what other people are coming up with. And so that's what I just wanted to expand, just keep going.
Wonderful. I hope that all comes true. So Gareth, sir, anything fun and exciting that you want to let our audience know that your name's going to be on, your project you're working on? Any goodness?
Well, firstly, just out as of last week is novel Sword Triumphant, which is the third in a trilogy I was doing. The basic concept trilogy is you have classic D&D party. They go off, they slay the Dark Lord. It's inspired by Tolkien, where he goes like, if Lord of the Rings followed the actual war, then the ring would not have been destroyed by used against Sauron, and Barad-dûr would not have been destroyed but occupied. So City of Darkness occupied by heroes. Great idea. So that's when the novels start 20 years after that, and by book 3 they moved on another 20 years. So basically these once fresh-faced young adventurers are now in their 60s and are mostly retired. So that's been fun to do. What are we working on at the moment? Trade of Cthulhu 2nd edition should be at Gen Con. That's myself and Ken Heish polishing up Peregrine's Trail. What else? I'm doing small adventures for Beyond the Woods, which is this lovely little Irish D&D setting. and Handiworks Games 5 Evil, which is a fantastic adaptation of the 5e system for horror and some of the most interesting and insightful GM advice I've ever read in there. It's fantastic. And what else am I doing? There's One Ring stuff coming that I can't talk about. There's Terraforming Mars, the role-playing game, which I'm working on with Ken as well.
Cool.
Oh, excellent.
That's really fun. It's going to be this whole generational play thing where basically you play through basically each scenario is one generation. So we want to make the next group of characters. Yeah, I mean, there's a billion things going on. I'm forgetting at this hour. Playtesting, it really depends on what the project is and what stage you're at. If it's an adventure, then you go through 2 stages of playtesting. You want your own early test internally, but then you want to hand it to other players and get them to run it, because it's one thing to run your text at the table. It's so they'll try to hand your text to someone else and see how they run it, because you can't package yourself in a role-playing game, although we have tried. And as for the future of the hobby, I have absolutely no idea. The last few years have seen such changes. I still remember friends of mine went to PAX Unplugged just a few months after Critical Role started, and they came back with this sort of shell-shocked expression going there were people watching things being played, and it's just total paradigm shift, and that has sort of continued. I've got 2 kids, or 3 kids, but 2 of them are going into high school next year. So we're doing the tour of the local schools, seeing what they're all like, and all the schools we went to, you get this spiel from the principal. They go, "Oh, we have a debate club, we have sports, we have Dungeons and Dragons," as this reason to go to the school, as one of the top things. They're going, this is just a very weird place where D&D has gone from this obscure hobby in the basement to this thing that not everyone knows about, but it's so much more high profile and accepted and valued, which is lovely. But as where the industry goes, I don't know. The whole creative industries in general are looking at AI and going, what the hell is going on with that? It's all going to be very, very strange. So I think projecting 20 years into the future is absolutely impossible. Projecting 5 years, tricky. Projecting 2 years, well, I just listed all the stuff I'm doing. So that will all happen, and then we shall see.
Wonderful. Will you be at Gen Con?
I will not be at Gen Con, sadly, because everyone is scared of US customs immigration coming from Europe, and yeah.
Lehman, are you going to be there at Gen Con this year?
I actually will be at Gen Con this year. I made the decision and have everything ready to go.
Awesome. Well, some of the people in chat might be able to meet you or see you next year if you're there next year, if it gets better. So take us home, Tim. Anything else on the horizon for you or the world's largest RPGs team?
Well, we've certainly got more products coming along. With Strange Owl Games, we're going to be putting out the new edition of Dragon Kings. That's going to crowdfund a little later this year. Very excited about that. World's Largest RPGs is starting with Dungeon, but World's Largest City is also on the horizon. That'll be the next one we do. So we'll be cranking that one up as well. So there's a lot of work to be done. But really, for me, still the most exciting thing going on right now that we're all working on is the Portals to Adventure contests. We have a couple running right now. Of course, there's the miniatures contest that you're working on right now, the painting contest for the STLs that you've sent out, and a lot of people have joined that. That's very exciting. And then also from Portals to Adventure is, of course, the subject of this very conversation, the Secret Doors Volume 1 contest, which we're drawing more people into all the time. I just want to encourage everybody that thinks they'd like to get involved. The barrier is fairly low. You just need to write a 500 or 1,000 word thing, and you can get that into the contest. The prize money has gone sky high thanks to all our friends at Ulysses Spiele who have contributed to the prize pool. Also, Fan Roll and Abby Normal Abnormal Media have also added to that as well. So frankly, I hate to break it to you guys, but the winner of the contest is probably going to make a lot more money off of this than any of us who are writing for the project. But you know, good for them. They'll have won a contest and get a nice big cash prize with it as well. Yeah, I mean, this is your shot. I'm speaking to anybody who thinks they might want to get involved. If they're a little hesitant, it's not that hard to get it in there. I think you're gonna have a wonderful experience being a part of it. And if things go well, this could be where you make your mark, where you get your chance to get into what to me is just about the most fun industry out there. And you can be a part of it. You can be a part of it. And I'd like you to be a part of it. So good luck. Good luck to everybody who's going to enter, and we'll see where it goes. Can't wait to see who wins.
That's wonderful. So in the time that we've been on the stream, we are knocking on the door of $666,000. So maybe the satanic panic was right. Maybe it's the statin panic, like Val said, that's smooth and luxurious. But since our last stream, you guys have opened up the Secret Doors prize pool increase stretch goal. You've opened up the mini painting contest. There's going to be a second Delver character sheet and backstory PDF. There is available a world's largest dice tray. There's a second prize pool increase that's been unlocked. And as of, I don't know, a day or two ago, last night maybe, the book ribbons for all the books. Everybody loves some ribbons. They're great. They're wonderful. And we got to do platinum for those too. So they're most excellent. And the only one that we've announced that has not been unlocked, and it's really close, is a limited edition upgrade alternative screen artwork. And we're pretty sure you guys will get this. We've already contacted the artist. So we might be able to tell you a little more about it. And but the campaign's got 8 days left, folks. So get out there and be our cheerleaders. Let folks know that you are submitting your dungeon concept for the contest. Let them know that you're a backer. You can definitely get people to join and vote for you. So that's a good part about learning the basics of marketing too. Is get your community excited. The folks who enters hold and reset. Gabriel, he's going to submit. So or she, if it could be Gabriel. Either way, they're submitting. You need to submit too. And we'll love to read your stuff. We'll vote for them. And maybe there'll be so many amazing entries that even past the winners, there will be opportunities to get published in the future. We love finding talent. Yeah. So whatever it is, we hope to bring you guys not only on this journey as Delvers and as customers, but as future creators as well. So that's been our hour and 20 we went over. Sorry, Gareth, we'll let you get to bed so you don't lose a sanity point for tomorrow's work session to make your deadlines. But everybody else, thank you for joining us. Again, campaign ends next Friday. So get out there and back if you haven't yet. Spread the word if you could. And we'll be back with some more streaming next week. So thank you all. Thanks, Timothy. Thanks, Gareth. Thanks, Lehman. Appreciate your contributions to this amazing project and for answering some great questions from the audience. We will see you guys next week. Cheers, folks.